Hey everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Artisan Pirate here, and in today's fun scroll saw project video, have another amazing design by Steve Good that is very versatile. Once again showing off what the scroll saw is capable of. I've already got the pattern printed out and prepped and attached to our material with clear packing tape, and the design in question is going to be a segmented bowl cut out completely over on the scroll saw, not the lathe, but the scroll saw. Once again showing off what the amazing tool is capable of. Here is the full-size pattern. As I said, it is attached with clear packing tape to our blank, and what I have prepped here is 2 pieces of pine, 2 pieces of walnut. These are 4-inch squares, and I have glued them together in this nice checkerboard pattern. They are milled down to 1/2 inch in thickness, so please keep that in mind. If you did not want to go with the segmented route here, you could of course just cut out an 8-inch square to 1/2 inch in thickness if you just wanted to follow today's instructions or Steve Good's pattern pack and make just a basic bowl over on the scroll saw. But I think it's going to look really unique. I did glue everything together here after milling it down with proper wood glue. You guys know I like using a lot of CA glue to assemble projects over here on the channel. I used Gorilla wood glue, and I glued everything together and clamped it tight, and I let it dry for 2 or 3 days before coming out and sanding everything flush. Again, everything is 1/2 inch in thickness. But what we're going to have to do over on the scroll saw is tilt the head of the scroll saw and do bevel cutting to make sure this bowl comes out properly and assembles properly later on in the video. And when I read Steve Good's pattern pack, he said draw a 1/4 inch space on a scrap piece of material. I've done it on the actual blank here itself. Of course, once we cut everything out, this will be waste wood, but what you're going to have to do is bevel the scroll saw blade to where those connect at an angle like that to where we can drill our pilot holes. Speaking of the pilot holes, we're not going to be able to drill the pilot holes straight down as we traditionally do. We're going to have to drill them also at an angle, and I'm not going to be able to use the Seiko scroller's drill that I like to use, or even the drill press. Once we get that angle set and a story stick cut to where we will have a guide, we will be using a drill and a small drill bit to drill the holes at an angle. And since everything is pretty much prepped and we're ready to go make our story stick so we can come back and drill our pilot holes, let's move the camera and do that now. And over here at the scroll saw, we'll begin by dialing in that proper angle to lock the scroll saw in. And again, as I said at the beginning, we're wanting to connect those 2 lines I drew on the material with a diagonal, and then we will use that angle to cut our story stick out of a scrap piece of oak, and we'll use the angle on that story stick to drill the pilot holes for internal cutting. With the scroll saw being tilted, the pilot holes have to be drilled at this angle, and I'm being as careful as I can be in lining them up. But then it will be time to head over to the scroll saw and begin scrolling. For all of the scrolling on this project, I will be using a number 5 ultra reverse tooth blade, and it will cut through the material exceptionally well with minimal chip out. And as you can obviously see here, we are cutting through 2 types of material, the pine and the walnut, at the same time. If you guys would like to try this pattern, it's available as a free pattern download over at Steve Good's scrollsawworkshop.blogspot.com website over in his free pattern catalog. I seen this pattern a couple years ago, and I always wanted to bring it to life in the best possible manner, and when the new Rikon scroll saw came into the workshop, I knew it was time to attempt this project. And one thing I like about the Rikon scroll saw is the whole head assembly tilts as opposed to the table itself. So the table stays nice and flat. And you guys know I have my scroll saw tilted towards me to reduce neck and shoulder strain. But you can obviously see that the work table itself is perfectly flat. So I'm not having to hunch over one way with that bevel, if that makes any sense. If you guys like what you're seeing, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to my channel and also follow me across all my social medias under the Artisan Pirate name. I'd really appreciate the support. But it does not take long at all to cut this project out. It's all just basic circles, but with the nature of the design, you need to be as loyal as you can be to the cut line, so I am of course taking my time and letting the blade do the work. we are working on the final ring here, and then all of the scroll saw work will be complete, and we can kind of get a visual of what the project is going to ultimately look like. So a really cool design made completely on the scroll saw, but it will now be time to glue everything up, and I will use medium grade CA glue and activator. And with the CA glue and the nature of it, I do have to work quickly here before it starts grabbing the material, but it allows me to produce these videos for you guys. And as you can see, I'm slightly twisting each of the rings here to give it a swirling pattern that is most commonly known for wood turning, but again made completely over on the scroll saw. But after the CA glue set up and cured, it was time to begin sanding, and we have not glued the bottom on it yet. That allows us to come over here to the spindle sander and sand everything nice and smooth. And I am being very careful here because the walls of the bowl are very thin. I'm just taking very light passes here. And I was kind of holding my breath during this process because I did not want to sand through the wall of the bowl. But after I was happy, it was time to glue the bottom on, once again with CA glue and activator. And when it set up and cured for around another 5 minutes, it was time to do the final bit of sanding. And for this phase of sanding, I opted to hand sand everything with different sanding pads, grits, and sanding sponges. But once I was happy with everything, I took a tack cloth and got as much of the caked in sawdust out as I possibly could, cleaning the bowl up in the best way possible. But then it was time to take it outside in the summer sun and give it several coats of Rust-Oleum clear gloss for a finish. And when it dried, the project was complete. And here we have the completed segmented bowl, cut out completely from start to finish over on the scroll saw, and it finished up amazingly well. Once again, showing off the scroll saw's amazing versatility for making amazing and unique designs such as this segmented bowl. Thank you, Steve Good, for another fantastic design from your pattern catalog. You had amazing instructions in the PDF pack you download, and I followed them to the letter in today's video to achieve what we have made here today. And hopefully it has inspired you guys to go out and try this project out in your garage or workshops. That is what I am here for, to hopefully inspire you guys to attempt projects that you might not have ever attempted. Is this bowl completely perfect? Absolutely not. It was my very first attempt at making one over on the scroll saw. And as I said at the beginning, if you did not want to go and prep for a segmented bowl, you could of course just start with an 8-inch square piece of wood that's 1/2 inch in thickness and go from there before attempting to glue up different species of woods. Of course, in today's video I used pine and walnut, and that was something I prepped off camera and glued together with Gorilla Wood glue. Gorilla Wood glue is what I like to use, and gave it proper and ample time to dry before sanding it flush and attaching the pattern where we picked up in today's video. At the very beginning of the video, we began by making our story stick, and that was after we dialed the scroll saw into the proper angle. We cut this piece to where we would have our beveled guide to drill the pilot holes that go in at an angle. But once we got to the actual scroll saw work, it only took me around 30 minutes to scroll it out from start to finish. It's not an overly complex design. It's just with the nature of this and how thin the walls of the bowl ultimately end up being, you need to be as loyal as you can to your cut line, and of course take your time and let the blade do the work. As I said, the blank was done in actual Gorilla Wood glue to make everything nice and sturdy and strong. But when we got to the assembly process in today's video, as you've seen, I used medium grade CA glue and activator, and that is because keeping up a weekly schedule over here on the platform, it is very tedious and time consuming to do that. But I love making these videos, and I try to make them in as a straightforward as possible approach to where you guys can understand them and take them in, and hopefully again inspire you guys to go out there in your workshops and make a project such as this or any of the projects that I make on this platform. And if you did have the time to go in and glue all the rings together with the proper wood glue and clamp them together and wait for them to dry before proceeding to the next one, by all means go that route. But that is why I use a lot of CA glue over here on the platform to keep up with the schedule and everything. But I still think it ended up great. Is it perfectly? Absolutely not. I can still see some sanding errors here. When I got over to the spindle sander, I was holding my breath when I was sanding the bowl. You know, I was hoping I wasn't going to sand through the walls, and I can still see in some areas some leftover remains of where I drilled the pilot holes, again at that beveled angle. And over at the scroll saw, it was such a smooth cut for me, because on the new Rikon scroll saw that I am using, the whole head and motor assembly tilts as opposed to the table. I know on some scroll saws only the table will tilt, and that can be a very uncomfortable angle to try to follow a cut line and be as loyal as you can be. With the Rikon scroll saw, as well as other ones that are on the market, now the whole head and motor mount assembly will tilt, and that leaves you perfectly flat over on the table to follow the cut line to the best of your ability. So really, really cool. If you really wanted to go the extra mile, you could make a blank out of multiple species of wood. Again, I just used the two here, pine and walnut, but if you wanted to use 6, 7, 8 pieces of material to make up an 8-inch square that's 1/2 inches in thickness, that would really be a wild looking design if you cut it out in the manner that I have done here in today's video. And I tried to glue it up just as Steve had in his pattern pack that I was following in this nice little swirling motion here. And I really think the Rust-Oleum clear gloss really brings the grain and textures and natural colors of the wood to the forefront, and it gives it that nice glossy sheen of protection that I like having on the project itself. Again, a little bowl like this will have a lot of uses. You could of course put candy in it by the door. You could put change in it if you collect loose change and things like that after a long day. It could hold your keys. I could see this bowl maybe around Easter and springtime, you know, put some artificial grass in there with some artificial Easter eggs for a nice little table decor or something like that. So the skies are the limits, especially with a design such as this. But really, really cool. I had a lot of fun in today's video, and I hope you guys like watching me make today's video. If you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll click that subscribe button and follow along on all the future journeys. And also follow me across all my social medias under the Artisan Pirate name. As always, links to contact me as well as all my social medias will always be linked down in the description box below these videos. That's about all for this one. And remember guys, if I can make it or do it, so can you. I'm the Artisan Pirate. Take care, and I'll see you guys real soon.